And we're live. Hooray. Welcome back to the podcast where I am hosting. Who
are you?
Who am I? Oh, yeah, I'm Kelley.
Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Jaime.
It's been a minute since
Yeah.
I have hosted or been on the podcast. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So welcome back. We are going to be talking about some terrible bills, like we always do on NARAL's the morning after.
Yep.
And we're going to start with House Bill 297, which is a CPC tax credit bill. It's changed into a couple of different iterations. So what's our most recent damage with this bill?
So it's a 50% tax credit for individuals who donate money to fake women's health centers or CPCs. And
Not a deduction.
Not a deduction, a full out credit. So if you donate $2,000 to one of these centers, you directly write off $1,000 from your state income taxes. So it's not like the deduction where you add up all of your charitable donations, a percentage of that comes off from, blah, 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 blah. Like this is a direct write-off of your state taxes.
So if I work for one of these fake women's health centers and donate $2,000, I can get $1,000 back of that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's cool. It seems ethical.
Or if you're, like a state legislator who runs it, you can, co-sponsor the bill like she did initially.
Yeah, lots of ethical things happening in this bill.
So that's why it was nicknamed the Keller kickback bill when it was introduced.
Yes.
And she got all sorts of crap from that, including from apparently quietly within her own caucus.
Yeah. Well, she actually had the wherewithal to think, oh wait, this could be an ethical thing. So she went to the ethics commission for the legislature and said, hey, what should I do about this? And they told her to not vote on the bill, to abstain from voting on the bill. So she heard that and went, okay, then it must be okay to co-sponsor it. I don't know how you have that conversation and somebody tells you don't vote on it and think, okay, then I'll co-sponsor. I think it's okay to co-sponsor it. Yeah. So it is now capped at $1,000 a year.
Okay.
It doesn't start until 2021.
Which it's going to be almost all the donations to any of these.
Yeah, it would be under $2,000 anyway.
Nobody's donating $5,000 to a CPC on the regular.
Some people are.
Yeah, but
what's his? Oh shoot! Becker has now donated his because John Becker, one of our crazies, who
don't worry, we'll talk
about him in a minute too. But he decided that the state legislator didn't deserve their wage increase, and he's been very vocal about how he's been donating their raise to various organizations over the year, monthly, and he's already given his raise to 2 CPCs.
That's gross.
Yeah.
So he could get half of that back.
Yeah.
But he doesn't deserve this raise. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
if he donated this amount of money to the CPC and then got half back from the state, he could then donate that to the CPC, get half back.
God, it'd be a never ending.
Yeah.
Well, it would end because one of the other changes is that it will also what they call sunset, which is go away automatically in 2024 unless they renew it, which they would. So the sunset's not really a thing that's actually going to stay in place. And if you look, so Missouri has this already, and it started out with a cap that then got raised a little bit more. And now, as of I think next year, we'll have no cap. And it started out at 30% and then went to 50%. And now it's 70% of the donation.
Good Lord.
So, this won't end. They might have put some tighter controls on it now, but those tighter controls will just go away. Just in the same way that we went from no dedicated funding to $1 million in the biennium to $7 million in the biennium for CPCs in the state budget. So,
And that money got added to the budget as this House Bill 297 was being introduced. So it really seems to be that these anti-choicers, anti-abortion, lobbyists and legislators, it's like they come up with some terrible idea. They get whacked in the news on it. Mm-hmm. And so then they come back the very next week and it's well, you all trashed us for this idea over here, so we're going to let that one go. But now we're bringing this up, and they bring up, whatever their plan B, whatever their other option is, that's the bill that moves forward. And it felt like this week, House Bill 297 getting that committee vote, they've had some other things kind of fall off. Peggy Lehner got, called out on her garbage. So it's like, well, we need to pass something. How about that House Bill 297? Let's move that forward.
Right. And I mean, that's how it's been for every abortion bill ever. It's like, oh, here's the ridiculous bill and here's a seemingly normal bill in comparison, but still terrible. And now we're at the bottom of the barrel of terrible bills.
Yeah.
So they're all nuts.
And just a few months ago, this was the awful idea that they were like, well, that's not going to move anywhere anytime soon. So let's add these millions of dollars into the budget for these, horrible organizations that lie to people.
And speaking of the most recent nonsense of ridiculous bills, House Bill 413 has been introduced. How many co-sponsors does it have?
18. So it's got 20 total supporters.
20 total supporters. And this is a total ban that introduces a murder charge.
Yeah. So it's basically performing or having a very clear, important piece of this. Having an abortion or performing an abortion would be considered murder or aggravated murder under Ohio's revised code, and the punishments would be accordingly, just like the punishments for murder or aggravated murder. So ranging from 15 years to life in prison all the way up through the death penalty based on aggravating circumstances around the charges.
Aren't there like additional things within this bill that even like go beyond the scope of ridiculous into just absurdity?
Yes.
Like within like a school zone?
Yeah, so it's the aggravating. So like when you move to like an aggravated charge of whatever, aggravated burglary, aggravated murder, that's a fun word to say over and over again. The aggravation in the charge is a doing it in a various ways. So doing it in a school zone is an aggravating circumstance. Doing it while committing arson is an aggravating circumstance. Doing it while committing a burglary is an aggravated circumstance. So there are pieces of it that create those aggravation, the aggravated part of the murder charge or the burglary charge or whatever.
How many pages is this bill, Jaime?
723. I made it all the way to 463 today. I'm feeling very proud of myself.
Why is it that long?
Because every place where the Ohio Revised Code talks about aggravated murder or murder, they have to add extra words to that section of the code. So not only am I reading all of the abortion code in the Revised Code, I'm reading Ohio's entire criminal code. It's fabulously fun and very irritating. Our criminal justice system is completely messed up.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So who is the initial sponsor of this bill?
It's Kenneth Kelley.
Oh, ain't that fancy.
And Ron Hood. They were actually the duo that brought us the 6-week ban when it finally got passed. So yes, the person who runs the CPC and Ron Hood, who is one of the I think founding members of the Caveman Caucus. So yeah.
Yes.
Is there an actual name of that, or is that what it's called in the State House?
It was widely known for decades, has been known as the Caveman Caucus.
Oh.
Because they are Captain Caveman.
Oh my.
I think we even made a meme once of Lynn Watchman's face on Captain Caveman when he was the sponsor of one of the ridiculous abortion bans.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I know what Captain Caveman is. I can assure you that a good portion of our audience does not.
Probably not. We'll have to put a picture. Well, maybe Gabe will find that picture of Lynn Watchman as Captain Caveman and put it in the show notes. Captain Caveman.
Right.
I think it's offensive to cavemen personally.
It really is. Most definitely.
So this bill, it's coming up with, with 700 pages and rewriting criminal code and all of that. I think the first instinct of a lot of people is, oh, this isn't something that's going to pass.
Joke's on you.
Or move right at this time. So, it seems to many of us that the reason why they would push it forward isn't so much, hey, let's move this bill and try and get this passed. I mean, it's 20 legislators, which is 1/5 of the House of Representatives, but they don't have a majority right now. So what they're gaining in the meantime is headlines about abortion and murder together, which people just read those words and then it applies that label in their mind. So, how do we combat the fact that these bills aren't actual serious legislation right now, they're just attempts at shifting messaging.
Well, I think there are definitely attempts at shifting messaging, but we also saw with the 6-week ban pieces, not the ban part, but pieces of the overall legislation make their way into other bills. So
Right.
like in one of the budget bills, I think in 15, they added all of the, you have to like do an ultrasound to look for the heartbeat and give all of the biased information about what finding fetal heart tones on an ultrasound means for the viability of the pregnancy and all that stuff. So they took a whole chunk of the uninformed consent part of the 6-week ban and passed it separately. So, I think it's definitely a messaging bill, and I think it's definitely something to look out for, them taking small chunks of it or ideas from it and passing it again as less extreme bills under the cover of this crazy extreme bill here. And of course, eventually we'll get there, because in 2011, we're like, oh, they won't pass this. And they didn't in 2011. They did in 2019 with the 6-week ban. So,
and I mean, it already has chunks of other bills. We see House Bill 182, Becker's ectopic pregnancy bill, into this one. So,
yeah, so there are
science fiction.
There is one exception for the pregnant individual not being charged. That is that the pregnant individual was coerced, forced, or otherwise pushed into having the abortion against their will, and they file a written police report to that effect. Is the only exception for the pregnant individual. And then there's an exception, and that's actually what they call an affirmative defense exception. So it's like it's in the same category in law of self-defense for a reason to injure or kill someone. Like, you can still be charged for it, but your defense against it was, well, I was forced to do it, so you should find me not guilty because of that piece. So it's not even like she can't be charged as she was forced. She can still be charged. She can just raise that as an affirmative defense on her behalf in the trial.
Cool.
And then the physician exception is super weird and interesting too. So it has the ectopic pregnancy piece in it, but it actually requires a doctor to do 3 things. The person has to be, and the bill is actually a woman. That's why I slip in the gendered terms all the time when I talk about legislation, because it's all pregnant woman, pregnant woman, pregnant woman. The law is not written gender neutral. But that the doctor has to diagnose the female patient in the bill with a certain fatal condition. So it can't be well, you might die. It has to be you will certainly die.
That's not really how medicine works.
No, it's not. That's number one. They had to do all 3. This is not an or, it's an and. So they had to diagnose her first, and then they have to do surgery to correct that certain fatal condition, even if surgery is not indicated as a cure for said fatal condition.
Okay.
And then 3, they have to do everything in their power to preserve the life of the fetus and then the life of the patient. It's in that order. Including, and this is where the ectopic, including transplanting an ectopic pregnancy from the fallopian tube into the uterus, which is, again, not a thing. If applicable.
Jeez Louise.
But what's really super interesting, and I actually cleared this with a lawyer because I was like, am I reading this wrong? That is an exception for the physician only. So if you're the patient and the doctor does all these things and there's still an abortion, you are still capable of being charged for murder under this bill because the pregnant person isn't included in that exception.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is a very well written and thought out bill. It's not.
No.
I just want to clarify that it is absolutely not.
But it's something that they did spend an enormous amount of time on in the face
They got paid to do this, guys.
by us.
Yeah. Yay, taxpayers.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely very detailed. I mean, it's not,
But bad.
it's not scientifically well thought out, but it is thought out.
Sure.
Like, they were very meticulous in how they wrote this and how they put it together to be as dangerous as possible for people in Ohio. Yeah.
I don't have anything pithy to say. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, it brings us into, though, the next thing we want to talk about, which is actually
his emails.
So Barry Sheets, if you are a watcher of committee hearings, You are a watcher of committee hearings.
You've seen Barry a few
You've
times.
seen Barry a couple of times. He's one of Gabe and my favorite witnesses.
I mean, we don't even like, we're not even limited to seeing him with regards to anti-choice legislation. He's just like all around for morality policing for other people.
His LLC is actually Principled Policy Consulting.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I need a shower now, thanks.
Yeah. So he, what's interesting is this whole ectopic pregnancy idea came from Mr. Barry Sheets. Not, let's make it very clear, not Dr. Barry Sheets. Mr. Barry Sheets. With zero medical training.
Is Barry short for anything? Barreled or something? I
have no idea.
I'm sorry.
So I know we're discussing policy here. His beard has really gotten out of hand.
It has grown. I will say this as probably one of the few people in the state of Ohio who think this thing. It reminds me of LeBron's ever-growing beard that drove me crazy. So they are not in the same category because LeBron is amazing and awesome, and Barry Sheets is horrible. But like the ever-growing beard, just cut it. It'll grow back.
I'm not here to police beards. Policy's bad enough.
Yeah. So yeah, he in 2007 he led the charge against lap dances in the state of Ohio.
Yes.
Which
Stormy Daniels has benefited from.
The thing that the police tried to charge her with was the law that was passed at the urging of his lobbying effort in 2007. So yeah, it was one of
my.
So Barry Sheets has cost us a lot of money, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
he's been an incredibly vocal opponent of marriage equality. You know, and anything that's really gross and nasty that you think of as like a Mike Huckabee point of view at the national level.
Yeah,
Barry Sheets is, you know, laying that on here in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
So including this idea of why
Where
don't
did
they
he
just
pull this
transplant the ectopic pregnancy?
There is one study from 1917 and another study.
That's where I get my medicine.
Yeah. And another study from
and
like
your leeches.
1988, both of which were like a single case study of
Am I wrong
something.
Am I wrong in remembering that is before the discovery of penicillin? I'm just wondering.
It's right around that same. I feel like that's right. I would have to Google that to be sure, but I'm not. But that sounds.
Nobody wants some 1917 medicine.
No.
Well, and that's the most hilarious part is, I guess, so, you know, there's a whole series of emails that an organization called Equity Forward had gotten from a public records request, kind of detailing out Barry Sheets's involvement in the drafting of 182, which is Becker talked about earlier, so an insurance ban. That was the first time we saw this. Ectopic pregnancy ridiculousness. And so see, I stopped doing it and then you did it. 1928. There you
Penicillin,
go.
1928.
So yeah, so this person that they tried to experiment on was before penicillin, yes. So in their back and forth emails, like when somebody asked Becker about like there only being 2 case studies and it not being an actual thing, Becker's response was, well, maybe if this isn't true, then they should retract that study. I'm like, it's not a study. It is one individual case. And it's from 1917. There's probably a lot of crap from medical journals in 1917 that we don't do anymore, that we haven't retracted. Like, I'm pretty sure we just don't like cut into people and let them bleed out infections any longer like we did in the 1900s. Like,
let's just like revisit ethics like we were in the beginning of this conversation. Just don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, we have, well, some of the medical establishment has stopped calling women hysterical and actually diagnosed mental illnesses. Like, medicine has evolved and you don't retract every study that isn't relevant any longer, dude. And that's not how medicine works, but he doesn't understand how medicine works. So whatever.
Right. Wow.
Doesn't want to understand.
No, he doesn't want to. He didn't look into it. Even when people asked him questions, he didn't look into it. He was just like, well, I was told this thing and it must be true. So here, like, he hadn't even read the 2 studies, didn't know about the 2 studies until a reporter asked him about it and he had to go look at them. And that was when he got defensive and is like, well, they should retract them if they're not true. I'm like, that's not how
it
works.
is from 1917.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if he wants to get all of his medicine in the frame of what medicine existed in 1917, he is more than happy to do it. I prefer modern medicine. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's another instance where even though abortion is a safe procedure, here let's talk about something that wouldn't be safe, and even though it's a separate idea,
Experiments.
it gets blurred in the headlines.
Yeah.
So,
and it becomes what everybody's talking about. I mean, no, when you the way you were talking about it earlier, you know, it's how many calls have we gotten like with questions about the ectopic pregnancy bill? I'm like, that's not actually what it is, but okay.
right.
So it's also kind of a distraction away from like what the real attacks are.
Right.
But, you know, USA Today, Washington Post, Cosmopolitan Magazine, Bustle, Jezebel, all of the papers in Ohio, they're carrying that story.
Yeah.
You know, Ohio legislator has, ridiculous ideas about abortion. And so then people just
one.
You know, they're not sure if abortion is still legal because they saw that DeWine signed his ban. And you know, now you've got all of these flashy headlines with dangerous ideas, and it starts to confuse people. That's their goal.
Yeah.
It is interesting that Mike DeWine has not come out and said that he would sign the total ban. He's kind of been avoiding answering that question.
I mean, he also hasn't said he wouldn't. But
No, that's true. But he did sign the 6-week ban and would be happy to sign any other ban. So I'm just surprised he hasn't really commented on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think even in the same way that Kasich continuously, you know, spoke about the 6-week ban being bad. You know, I think it's another way for him to not look extreme. I think actually
does he care? Like, honestly,
the quote that I think it was in the clips you pulled today, where like something was like, you know, a lot of people think this bill is extreme and Ohio isn't that extreme or something. Like he even tried to play the, you know, we might be pro-life, but we're not that extreme pro-life. Like, yes, you are, dude. Like a 6-week abortion ban is basically a total abortion ban.
Right.
Like what you signed into law might not have this ridiculously stupid, completely inaccurate piece about ectopic pregnancy, but it will still kill people because it doesn't have a broad enough health and life exemption to actually protect the health and life of pregnant people.
Right.
Like what you signed was pretty damn extreme. Am I allowed to say that word?
Yes, that is one of the few.
Yay. And so like you can't get out of like saying you're not extreme because you are.
Right.
Wolf. All right. So continuing in the vein of ethics and experiments, I don't know why that's the theme of the day.
Because Republicans make it the theme of the day.
Right. So we've been talking about Senate Bill 155 that Peggy Lehner introduced, which is the misinformation bill for patients who are seeking the medication abortion. And there was lots of citing or not citing of studies because it was not ethical to do studies on patients who are seeking abortion care and whatever. But there actually was a study out at UC Davis that was in the process of happening that would test the abortion pill reversal regimen that was recommended. And it ended early. Surprise.
Yeah. So for people who don't understand medical research,
Jaime has done lots of things that are medical research.
Official medical trials for all drugs, cancer drugs, all the birth control pills, everything go through the FDA, and they have very, very specific standards for how you can go about doing them, what these experiments look like, consent processes, and all of those things. So yes, a researcher at UC Davis, unlike all of the quote unquote research that was presented by proponents of the bill when they were talking about it, who didn't go through this process. None of this was ever FDA approved. None of it was ever under any kind of scientific rigor control or anything. This researcher at UC Davis did go through the FDA process and get an official clinical trial approved to run with patients seeking surgical abortion care. So somebody who has already decided that they want to terminate their pregnancy. So after a consent process about how everything would work and laying out all of the information so that person could make a informed decision about whether they wanted to participate in this trial or not, hence ethics. They were given the first pill of the medication abortion regimen, and then either a placebo or a high dose of progesterone, which is the reversal that they say will work.
In the biggest of air quotes.
Yes. And and then they would look and see whether pregnancies continued in the progesterone group and ended in the placebo group. They wanted to, I think, enroll like 30 or 40 patients. They stopped after 12.
Yeah, something like that.
They stopped because 3 of those 12 were emergency transported to
For
hospitals for hemorrhaging. So bleeding.
Yep.
Excessive bleeding.
Yep.
So, my tweet on that was hashtag "We told you so, Peggy," because we had told her over and over again that this was, definitely not approved and potentially unsafe. And now we have confirmation that 25% of the people that went through this clinical trial did have very bad effects from this quote unquote treatment.
Which is not to say that medication abortion is unsafe, because it's not.
Not.
It is a very safe regimen. Has less complication procedures than birth.
Yes.
But
these people weren't getting
the full regimen.
Yeah, they weren't getting a medication abortion. They were getting half of a medication abortion.
They were getting the mifeprex only.
Right. So, it would be equally a problem if you went to your oral surgeon and got half a root canal.
I don't like that. Why'd you say that?
Well, that's
the truth. That's how you think about it.
And so Right to Life is like, well, this shows that medication abortion is unsafe, but it's not. Half of a procedure
is not safe.
Is not safe.
Yeah, not following the full regimen.
You got to
not
get the procedure,
yes.
and so they're using it to change the headlines. They're using it to try and paint something that is safe as unsafe, and they're continuing this idea that people who get abortions, who actually schedule the appointment and go for the first procedure or for the first consult with the doctor, and then come back after a 24-hour waiting period and pay all this money and go through all this, that somehow, even though they've taken all of that responsibility to obtain this medical care, that somehow they still need time to think about it, that they're undecided, that this is a difficult decision for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that it's not. But this bill kind of adds in, well, they might be undecided about this even after they've already
jumped through all the other hoops.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that, they're continuing to try to use this as another way of making it seem like, oh, this is a difficult decision and we need to regulate it some more.
Yeah.
We don't.
Well, and the research is actually, the one thing research is solid on is that decisional certainty among people having abortions is really high.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you look at people who don't have high decisional certainty about having an abortion, they're way more likely to believe lies told by anti-abortion groups and people about abortion. So they're more likely to believe that abortion has all of these side effects and is super dangerous and you're going to get breast cancer and be infertile and blah, blah, blah. And that, so there are a lot more, the more lies that these groups introduce into the conversation, the more uncertain people become because they have confused the situation, not because she doesn't know that this is the best decision for them to make. It's just that they have confused and muddied the water so much that people don't know what to believe.
Right.
And they just do it over and over and over again with all of these bills.
So, and then we legislate on it.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
But this study should be the end of Senate Bill 155.
I mean, I agree, and I hope so.
That was Senator Lehner's first question to Dr. Anita Samani in the hearing was, are there any studies that show that this is dangerous? And Dr. Samani, she answered the question, but now
the answer is yes.
And I think Dr. Samani pointed to, some people who had looked into it. Now we actually have somebody who's, attempted to complete a clinical trial with patients actually going through with this prescribed procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not shown to be safe. That was Senator Lehner's question is, do you have any studies that show that this is unsafe?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I do want to ask her, now that we have a study that it's unsafe, will you retract your support of the bill?
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll
Go
see.
get her.
Go get her. Yeah, I think it is really important because we haven't talked about this on the podcast yet either. That some of our legislators are fighting back. Representative Allison Russo and Dr. Beth Liston, Representative Dr. Beth Liston. I never know which way to like put those two things together. How you do double titles, or maybe it should just be Representative Liston, MD. But that's weird to say out loud.
Professor Doctor.
Yeah. So they actually introduced a bill in the Ohio House that would exempt medical professionals from having to give medically inaccurate information to their patients or do procedures that are not safe for the patient. Also, conversely, allows doctors, even if a law forbids it, to give medically accurate information about various things and provide medical care that is appropriate, even if illegal. So it would actually keep abortion legal if they outlawed it at some point. It will not actually go anywhere because it's two Democrats, but it's a really good bill fighting back on not only this, but a bunch of other bills in the state legislature that are, definitely attacking actual science and actually how things work.
I really like Dr. Liston and Representative Russo. They're just good Democrats, good representatives. Happy to have them in the state house.
Yeah, they're definitely two very caring and very detail oriented and really want things to, be based on fact and logic, which
good freshman legislators to add to the health and human services committee.
Yes, they were very, very helpful there.
Mm-hmm.
So yay.
So that's all we have for this week, other than like the slatter of events we're closing the year with.
What you up to, Kelley?
Oh my gosh, so many things. Tonight I'm in Cincinnati. I have to leave immediately. Goodbye. Next Thursday we're having a holiday debate watch and chill party. I'm gonna put together a hot chocolate bar and wear my pajamas. So come hang out with me.
And you can wear your comfy clothes.
Yeah, or not. I guess
Yes.
do whatever you want. I'm gonna wear pajamas.
And wear an outfit that's just all starched clothes.
That sounds the least comfortable, but that does also seem very on brand for you.
You said or not on the comfy clothes thing.
I think what you really need is like 1950s dad pajamas, starched and pressed.
What he needs is a Dickensian pajamas with a nightcap.
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect.
Get off my lawn. And so that's the
humbug.
That's the last.
That's also on brand.
You boy, what day is it?
It's Christmas Day. No, it's not. It's the debate watch.
I haven't missed it.
Anyway, that's what we're ending the year with.
Uh-huh.
But we're going to be coming back at the end of January with just a whole bunch of things. There is a kick-ass music festival basically happening in Cleveland, well, in Lakewood specifically. Row, yeah, it's a Midwest fest to protect abortion. There's like 12 bands that are performing. Row, yeah.
Hannah up in Cleveland has been working her butt off to make this happen.
Sure.
It's really impressive. So way to go.
We're bringing back the Melt Stigma series in Central and Southern Ohio, so you can check that out January 21st through 23rd at Easton Dayton in the Short North location. Mm-hmm. And the 24th, we're pairing with Evolved Body Art and Melt Bar and Grill, so you can get a grilled cheese tattoo or whatever tattoo you want. So just as long as you mention NARAL, 25% of any tattoo, piercing, or merch you purchase kicks back to us, which is pretty cool. Woo-hoo. And then there's a whole bunch of things happening on the 25th of January yet to be determined. All right. But there's at least 3 events that day. Yes. So
cool.
Keep your ears open.
Tuned.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.